Okay, so as promised, here is the imperfect verbs, the ER and IR endings. Basically, the ER and the IR verbs are the same endings, so you only have one set to remember here. And then we're also going to go through the irregulars. Okay, so your ER and IR endings for the imperfect. Now, there's good and bad news with these. Okay, so again, we're just taking off the ER and the IR and adding our new endings. Let's get through your subject pronouns here. So we have yo, tú, él, ella, usted, nosotros, vosotros, and ellos, ellas, ustedes. Okay, endings here. Now, the yo form is ia. Tu form, ias. El, ella, usted, ia. Nosotros, íamos. Vosotros, iais. And ellos, ellas, ustedes, ian. Okay, so here's where we have to talk about advantage versus disadvantage, or things to look out for. So, disadvantage, you've got an accent everywhere, but that's also an advantage because you have the accent everywhere. So make sure that when you're learning this, you pay attention to that accent on the I, right? And just remember, it's always an accent on the I on every single form. Okay, one of the big things that I see that happens to students when you're doing the imperfect is that you forget whether your verb was an ER or an IR or an AR verb. And so a lot of times we'll see students accidentally switch up the endings. So just keep an eye on that, right? And again, you've got your pattern here. So you have the yo form, the same as the LA usted form. So we've seen that before. We saw that with the ARs. Okay, so you're just going to pick it up on context, which one you need. Tu form has an S, that's our traditional thing, the amos, the ice, and the an. So just one thing that kind of will mess with your head a little bit here is these are ER and IR verbs, and yes, you have an A basis in your ending. So just, roll with it, spend some extra time memorizing it, and you'll be good. Okay, so now let's look at an ER verb for an example here. So let's do comer. Okay, so comer, traditional ER verb, right? We're just going to take off that ending, add our new ending. So the yo form, comía. Tu form, comías. Él, ella, usted, comía. Nosotros, comíamos. Vosotros, comíais. And ellos, ellos, ustedes, comían. I'm sorry my accents keep going flat. It's because I didn't give myself enough space on my chart. Okay, so regular ER verb. There you go. There's your ia kind of endings. Okay, and so comer, to eat. So an example of this would be, cuando yo era niña, yo comía macaroni and cheese or macaroni y queso todos los días. True fun fact about me if you want to know that. So yo comía, so that means I used to eat, or I always used to eat. I regularly ate. That was my routine. So I should have taken stock in Kraft macaroni and cheese. Maybe I'd be rich by now because of the amount of macaroni and cheese I ate. Anyway, so the idea is that was routine, comía. Okay, so there's an ER verb. Now let's look at an IR verb. Let's just do vivir. I'll squeeze it in here. So vivir, to live. And again, like I mentioned in the last video, there are very few irregulars. We'll get to them in just a second. But the imperfect has only 3 irregulars. So where you're used to IR verbs and ER verbs causing you a problem, in the imperfect, they just really don't. So that's good. So yo vivía. So that would be like I used to live, or I was living. Tú vivías. Él, ella, usted vivía. Nosotros vivíamos. ellos, ustedes, vosotros vivíais. I almost messed that one up. Vivíais. And then ellos, ustedes vivían. There we go. So remember those accents all the way through, all the way on the I's, or every time on the I. Okay? Now, your three irregulars are ir, ser, and ver. So no surprise whatsoever with ir and ser that those would be irregulars. Those cause us problems everywhere we go, everything we do. Okay, let's get our chart running here. So let's do ir first. So even though they're irregular, I don't think they're too tough. It just takes the extra time to pay attention to them. Okay, let's change to red just to make it pop a little bit more. Okay, so the yo form of ir is iba. Now, one of the great things about ir is it's so common that you'll use this in the imperfect that I think you'll memorize it pretty fast. And yes, it's funky because you have this AR ending and it's an IR verb, but just go with the flow here. So ibas is the to form, then iba gets repeated, íbamos, there's your accent, ibais, and iban. Now, one of the best things about ir is, as English speakers especially, we have the tendency to say, I was going to. So, like, if you say, I was going to class, you could say, iba a la clase. And then maybe I could say, like, I was going to the class when something else happened. Cuando, and I'm going to throw a preterite in here just so you can see, and that's not till the next chapter. But you can see what happens. Cuando vi a mi amigo. So I was going to class when I saw my friend. Okay? Let's see. Then let's do next. We'll do ser. Okay. So ser is era. So we have era, eras, era, éramos, erais, and eran. Now, again, ser is one of those ones that you're just going to see a lot. I meant to do that in red just to create contrast, and I didn't do it. So this is like if you say when I was a kid. So cuando era niña, I don't want to take up too much space over there because I got one more chart I want to fit. So cuando era niña, right? If I go back to my macaroni example, cuando era niña, comía macaroni y queso. Okay, so anytime, especially if you start a sentence out with this, it probably tells you your next verb is going to be in the imperfect as well. So when I was, these are translating as the was. Now, we can also use these when we tell time. So if I say it was 12 o'clock, I would say eran las 12. So just keep an eye out for that as well. Okay, now the last one that I'm going to fit over here of our irregulars. Again, we only have 3, yay. So the last one is going to be ver. So for ver, we have veía, veías, veía, veíamos, veíais, and veían. So like I used to see, again, sorry my accents are going kind of flat there. So for instance, I could talk about, and ver and mirar are synonyms pretty much for like if you say that you're watching TV or something. So in this example, I'm going to use ver because, well, that's what we're working on. So if I could say, cuando yo era niña, when I was a girl, yo veía mucha televisión. So if I used to watch a lot of TV, I would say veía. So the idea is there was that routine. It was something that was ongoing. Okay, so that's your lesson on the imperfects. I actually really like this tense. I hope that you do too. I think it's a lot easier and it's pretty refreshing after doing the preterite. Adios.